So welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Matt.
You know, we've shot a number of these videos now, but just in case, I'd like to tell your story just briefly about why are you qualified to talk about leadership, your experiences, and frankly, even some of your disqualifications. I think it'll really help people give a frame to the whole entire story. So I know you've been a business owner for over 30 years, that you've had 20 businesses and 14 of them at the same time. You've had hundreds of employees, worked for Fortune 500 companies. I know you've also had a real conviction about those in need and have served on charitable foundations. You've also been on boards of banks, hospitals, universities, and all of those things have taught you great lessons about leadership. You've had some great hobbies, including being a pilot for 30 years. We could talk about all those things, but I know that God has done an extraordinary work in your life starting in 2011, and I know that's the real reason you're here. Isn't that true?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, so I've encouraged anyone watching this video now to go back and watch video 1 through 4, because now we're on our 5th video. I'll just do a little recap for those coming fresh into this. So the first thing is, we've been discussing these 4 anchors that can hold leaders back and limit their leadership. And the first one that we identified was the mask, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and the mask was about how that we protect ourselves by putting on sort of a persona or a mask to fulfill a role. And then we have to go to the next thing, which is the loop, where we just keep looping around that same story or that same script that the mask dictates that we play. And then we talked about the fight, where it's about this battlefield that we're on, and it might not be the right one, or it's the ladder against the wrong wall. We talked about that way. And ultimately, these loops and these battles and wearing the wrong masks, it just exhausts our resources. You've said before, if you're on the wrong battlefield and you're in defensive mode all the time, you're out of resources. You experience a level of broken. So then there was the frame, and it was so powerful to realize how we frame ourselves, the world around us, and our leadership even. It really affects what we even see is happening. Outside the frame, there's something completely different than what we see. But you've been starting to convey what it means to unlock all this stuff, all these anchors, to just get rid of the anchors that are tying us out to sea and find a whole new reality out there. And you've experienced this firsthand, and we want to talk today, what you've experienced we could call from brokenness to breakthrough, right? We're going to talk about the breakthrough.
Exactly. That's exactly how I relate to it.
Yeah, and what is the breakthrough in your opinion, or even in your own experience?
Well, Matt, there comes a time, and if it hasn't come for you, it will come.
Yeah.
There comes a time when a choice has to be made. We're either going to go back and repeat one of our previous loops. Maybe it's more comfortable. Maybe we think this time we'll get it right.
Yeah.
We're either going to repeat a previous loop, a previous experience. We're gonna shrink back into what has provided us a degree of comfort and made us feel safe, or we're going to experience breakthrough.
Yeah.
And for me, brokenness was that segue. I could no longer go back. Even if I could go back, mentally, I had seen the other side. I'd seen that the loops of my life, that the framework that I was living in, the masks that I developed, I could see suddenly that all of them were false. They were facades.
Yeah.
And once I saw that, I could no longer just let myself go back. And so that's where my breakthrough came from. Now, since then, I've found that I can live a lifestyle of breakthrough because I'm modifying my framework, the awareness that I have of what's really happening, what God's Word says is happening, how I answer the questions, the hard questions that I never wanted to ask before, how I answer those, how I evaluate what's going to bring true satisfaction and true success to my life. Suddenly I found that I'm able to identify other areas that I need breakthrough, and I'm able to pursue that breakthrough in a positive way, not necessarily in a nuclear fallout type way.
Right. So, but in your book, here we have on the table these books that says broken, but underneath it says something very curious. You say, unlocking the greatest success of my life. What do you mean by this unlocking?
Yeah, unlocking, and I really do view it that way. It's not just a comfy word. That's how I view it. You know, I was locked in a battle.
Yeah.
I was locked in this battle. And in my mind, if I let my fists drop for 1 minute, something bad was going to happen. And that was because I was locked in this framework, this view of life, this view of my existence, of my purpose, this view of even how I related to God. I was locked in that, and it kept me engaged in this perpetual battle, which kept me repeating the same loops, the same thought processes, the same things, hoping for the result that I wanted. And I was locked in this persona that I believed represented me properly to God and to man. I didn't want to ask the questions about the false framework, about the false battle. As long as I was engaged, I felt okay.
Right.
I felt okay. I thought that eventually, it would happen. Have you ever been in this situation? When I was young and was dating, girls, I would think to myself, boy, you have to really work at falling in love with this person. And then when you meet the right person, it's breakthrough.
Yeah, it's easy.
But I was engaged in a lifestyle of battle, of false frameworks that I knew, look, I'm building muscle here by fighting this fight, but I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. People would say, well, yeah, you were making money, you were employing a lot of people. There may have been ancillary things that I was accomplishing, but down inside myself, my only use for faith, I want to try to say this right. My use for faith was to glue together all the fragmented pieces of my persona.
Yeah. So, but bringing that persona, let's just call it for what it is, bringing that persona to the cross and saying, God, it's not my identity. It's your identity. You do with it what you want. Is that the moment where the mask comes off, the loop is broken, the frame changes, is when Jesus Christ himself lets you know who you are, and it unlocks something entirely different.
There's no doubt that's truth, Matt. But I didn't experience it exactly like that.
Tell me about that.
Because I'm just being honest. I thought I was serving God to the fullest of my ability. Now, I'd camouflaged anything. I wouldn't listen to anything that didn't fit in that reality.
Right.
I can look back now and it seems obvious to me that I was not. But at the time, that was not my perspective. My perspective wasn't as much about seeing who God was as much as it was about seeing who I was
Wow.
in God's presence. Because by saying unlocked sounds great, doesn't it? It's like I walked over, I pulled out the right key, I set myself free. No. Unlocked meant I was completely helpless.
Yeah.
I was completely broken. And I felt I couldn't lift my own head up. I couldn't, my adrenal gland could not go one more round of the self-defense. I couldn't do anything that would help me. Mm-hmm. I was dead. And in that moment, I saw myself before God. And to be honest, I talk about it in depth in the chapter in the book. I reached out, and it was kind of like the prodigal son story. Now that I look back, I didn't think about it at the time, but I just said, God, I can't ask you for anything. I mean, you've already done more for me than I could have ever imagined. I don't deserve anything. All I want to know is that there's more than this.
Yeah.
And it was, it was the beginning of breakthrough because my framework changed. My view of my life, my view of purpose, my view of even what it meant to be at peace suddenly changed.
Yeah.
And when that happened, the cascading effect just continues to this day.
Yeah. It's so important that we're making these videos, that you wrote this book, that you told your story, if nothing else for yourself, but now it turns out it can help a lot of people, because everyone, like you said, at some point is going to face a moment, their moment like this, especially leaders, because they've chosen to put themselves on the front line, chosen to put themselves in an unnatural state, chosen to be servants. They're going to face this. So I hope people are hearing what you're sharing right now, which is, hey, if you're at any point in this journey, this can help you. But maybe another thing they can identify with is this now versus future that has changed for you. So I've heard a lot in your story about how you were sort of looking to a goal ahead, trying to achieve something far out. And again, the frame has changed thanks to Jesus, thanks to your finding out who your identity is. How has it changed mission versus the moment in this whole brokenness to breakthrough framework?
Yeah, it's of course, you and I have discussed this. This is a perfect way to say it. I never lived in the moment.
Yeah.
Everything about my life was looking past the moment, looking past the conversation I was having, looking past the circumstance, and on to something else.
Yeah.
Always searching for something that wasn't there in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And now my view of breakthrough is a lifestyle and a cycle of the moment and the mission literally being like concentric circles. They have to exist one and the same.
Yeah.
There can't be an identity crisis between the moment and the mission. They have to be one and the same. Now, does that mean that every moment's going to have as much power toward the mission as another? Probably not. But our awareness and our ability to live in the moment gives us a constant awareness that I consider to be like a preparatory. It's a constant absorption of the presence of God. Another whole topic.
Yeah, wow.
Presence in the moment, realizing who I am, realizing the framework of what I was created to be. Now, do I know what that all looks like? No, because it's beyond my imagination. I kind of like it that way now. See, before I was defining my success by things I could strategize, that I could imagine, that I could pull together and force into play, and then keep fighting to keep them flying apart. And now I'm of this awareness that breakthrough for me is that I'm in a constant state of growth. I'm in a constant state of improvement, and I can't even define it. Now, for a lot of business leaders, the scary part, I would have said this, I believe. The scary part is, but I'm barely keeping it all together now.
Sure.
I'm barely keeping it all together, and this business has to make money. One of the things I learned was that God doesn't work on a timetable like I thought. I had deadlines. I had things that needed to be accomplished, and He didn't even seem to care about those deadlines. but it was because the frame that I had put it in required action that was definable, that was in a time frame that I had to assume that accomplishing this was more important than waiting to see what God had in mind. So it's a scary concept for business people.
So true. It's well put, and I hope people are hearing that. But they might have heard another thing. It's on the cover of your book. The unlock led you to achieve the greatest success of your life. That might be hard for some people to hear. You've achieved a lot of success.
Yeah.
What does that mean to achieve the greatest success? It might relate, if I remember, back to a question you had for yourself. Am I created? Am I becoming the man that God created me to be? Tell me more about that.
Is this what I was created for?
Yeah.
There is the unspoken existence in most leaders' lives. I've talked to enough people to know this is true, and I've experienced it. We deny it. There is this base level root definition that says, I'm lacking. I'm lacking.
Yeah.
I need to be more than I am. creates and invokes fear that we also deny. Talk about that in our fears.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much fear that we deny. It's so camouflaged in our existence. We don't even understand it as fear. And all of these things mask themselves in such a way that we fail to realize freedom and breakthrough don't mean, oh, he's just talking about, if I just give it all to God, if I just, no, I'm not divorcing those things from action. I'm not divorcing them from battle. I'm not divorcing them from establishing the persona of our greatest and highest purpose for living. What I am saying is that when we're unlocked in pursuing our highest degree of success, we're going to have a clear vision for what that success is, what it looks like, not what the outcome is as far as in a physical sense, but the benefits, the satisfaction. How can you put a price tag on satisfaction? The peace, the contentment, the sense of well-being,
Right.
the sense of contribution into other people's lives. You know my stories about taking guys to the bus station when I'm in prison, and the awareness that God could use me was just an overwhelming emotion in my life. All of these things. I mean, imagine that the framework of your life is built on the framework of what if. I've been these things that what if I believed? What if I really believed what God said about me and about him?
Yeah.
I could go into a lot of specifics, but
Yeah.
what if I really believed
What
that?
if you did?
And what if that was the framework for my life? Well, what if I really believed that the battle and the warfare and the battleground that I was fighting on, I was equipped with the resources of heaven. I was fighting alongside the warriors that God had placed me with because he's got a purpose for my life. What if I really believed that? How does that change the fight? What if I really believed that the loops that I was pursuing were loops that extended from me on into understanding and areas of life that I've never been? They weren't loops backwards. They were loops forward. They were loops that were taking me into a perspective where I'd never been before. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but that loop, instead of pulling me backwards, would allow me to catch glimpses of what could be, glimpses of possibility, glimpses of future and a life that I was created for. What if that's the loop I was trapped in that was pulling me forward? What if the mask was really the robe of righteousness that I reject? I reject that, Matt, because I don't deserve it. I have not earned it. I don't believe it that I deserve it. And yet that's the mask that I was created for.
Wow.
That's breakthrough.
Breakthrough is a sudden shift in a new direction. And you just went through all of the anchors that were holding us back. You cut the anchors in that last statement that you just said to release us to experience breakthrough. The only thing we have to do is be ready for this. We got to wrap up these videos here. We could talk even more, and we will. But just to give people a practical application for all of this, when it comes to being a business leader, being a Christian, and having the opportunity to use the workplace as a platform for ministry, what's a practical takeaway that anyone could have in reading your book or hearing these videos today?
The practical takeaway, from my perspective as a business leader and offering this to other leaders, a practical perspective is that our change, our breakthrough, is the only thing that will enable the breakthrough of others. And it really is the definition of leadership.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Greg, for sharing your story. I hope that people will pick up the book and read more. Thanks for joining me, and Greg as well, in this Breakthrough Leadership series.